Very good evening. It's a fun week. Let the fun continue, certainly for the next hour, certainly for the next few days. And I don't know whether Sunday will be fun or not. It depends who you support, or maybe it'll be a great game and a high-scoring draw. I think a 1-1 draw. You know what I'm talking about. But, you know, the biggest game of the season here in Sheffield, you could argue the biggest game the Steel City has staged for, 5 years since the last Steel City derby. And here we are looking forward to Hillsborough. Sheffield Wednesday against Sheffield United on Sunday. So what on earth am I doing sitting here with a snooker referee and a Member of Parliament? But that just goes to show that the Steel City derby transcends football. It goes way, way beyond football and sport. It goes into all areas of life. Hence, Toby Perkins MP, welcome to the studio for the second time. I think you're displaying a fairly obvious clue as to who you support. And I should have warned you to wear, well, you're doing okay with the blue and whites. You're doing okay. Brendan Moore, World Snooker referee, indeed the World Snooker final referee 3 years ago, and arguably the #1 referee in the sport of snooker. But you only qualify to be here because you are a fan of
The Massive.
The Massive. Can only be Sheffield Wednesday. Do you call the Blades the Mighty?
The Mighty Blades, indeed, yeah.
The Mighty Blades. Okay. So an obvious question to kick off. Brendan, you first. Who's going to win on Sunday?
Sheffield Wednesday, no doubt.
Okay, Toby, who's going to win on Sunday?
Well, obviously I'm going to go for United. I mean, I think, if I'm being totally truthful, I think the first goal is going to be crucial. I think both United and Wednesday keep the ball pretty well, and I think whoever scores first, the other team's going to find it pretty difficult. But I think I've got a feeling we might pull off a shock and get a result.
We'll go into the mechanics of the hows and whys you might get a result, and how and why Brendan thinks the Owls will win on Sunday a little bit later. But first of all, the divisions that football creates. I remember going down to the Crucible a couple of years ago and interviewing a couple of players, and also your colleague Jan Verhaas. And at the practice tables at the Crucible, all the conversation was about football. There wasn't a single conversation going on about snooker.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
it's just...
No, you're right. I mean, everybody in the snooker world, they're all football fans.
Yeah.
Whenever we go out, socialise, or like you said, at the practice table, nobody talks snooker. They'll go out there, do their job, but after that, football's the common denominator that everyone talks about, no matter who you support.
Now tell me, among your fellow referees, are there any other Sheffield Wednesday supporters?
No, because I'm the only one from Sheffield.
Right.
At that level, but there's a few that are Man United. Jan's Feyenoord, because he's from Holland. He's a big football fan. Trying to think of some others. We've got one coming through the ranks that's a Stockport season ticket holder.
Blimey, that's brave.
So yeah, very.
Yeah.
So he tells some good stories of when they were half decent.
So there's great rivalry off the table in terms of the football scene, and of course you were a bus driver at one time in Sheffield, weren't you? So
yeah, did it for 10 years.
Yeah. What a transition from doing that to being a snooker referee.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Conducting either way, I suppose.
Yeah, but I enjoyed bus driving. It was a good job. I really enjoyed it, but I just got a bit fed up after 10 years. Took 2 years out. My wife's a childminder, so I took 2 years out childminding with her so I can find something that I want to do. I sort of fell into refereeing.
Were you one of them bus drivers who used to drive off when someone running up with
Yeah, just wait while they run, get near the... Not with a pram. No, not with a pram. I would never do it with a pram. Just get them near the door and then off you go.
Yeah, that's the sport, isn't it? Just get them very, very close. And you could see the bus driver looking in the wing mirror.
Yeah.
I would never do that. Never did that.
What about in the house? Talking about divisions among people in snooker now then. What about the conversation in the house? You don't tell me you're talking politics all day long.
Well, no, indeed. I mean, I think the sort of football favouritisms of the MPs around here is pretty well known, but Paul Blomfield is the solitary other blade in the house, and it's Angela Smith and Clive Betts, big Wednesdayites, and Louise Haigh, other Sheffield MPs, actually a Barnsley fan.
Right.
So yeah, we have all sorts. We have, obviously David Blunkett was a big Wednesdayite too. So
And Roy Hattersley as well.
Yeah, before my time, Roy. But yeah, another well-known Wednesday night. And in the 2011-12 season, which I was sort of quite close, just gone back into Parliament, or just gone into Parliament, I should say. Yeah, there was a tremendous amount of sort of rivalry and Mickey taking in the run up to that. But obviously it was a kind of tragic ending to that season, so we went a bit quiet after that.
Yeah. Well, why do you think? Why is it that Wednesday have attracted more support from MPs? Do you think than United over the years?
Well, I mean, I think
strange.
I don't know if there's something to it, but I think there is. I have a sense that United are possibly more the working class club, and Wednesday more the establishment. That's certainly how they see themselves, and so whether there's something in that people who've progressed through politics in Sheffield have been more likely to be Wednesday nights. Whether it's just coincidence, I don't know. I'm not close enough to Sheffield Labour Party to know really, but I think within the council, the makeup of the council team, there's United nights and Wednesday nights, both sides.
Yeah, I was reading the other day that historically, going way back to when the clubs were in their infancy, it was perceived to be the other way around.
Really?
Yeah, Wednesday were the working class one, and United were considered more the establishment. So
yeah, I don't. May well be true. I mean, I think there was. I read something that United football section was obviously set up by the cricket club, but one of the people who was sort of senior in the cricket club was actually a director of Wednesday. So someone was a director of Wednesday through his. Right. Involvement with the cricket club was involved in the setting up of United, but that's historians would be better to answer those ones than me. But obviously both of the clubs, massive institutions. I think you can't make enough of the fact that how well supported they both are. I think for United, 6 seasons in League One, getting 20,000 fans a week through what were very, very thin times. I mean, just think it's been absolutely remarkable. But, it's interesting. There's a lot of banter and rivalry about one set of fans and the others having a go at each other and, we took more to this club or you have more at that home match. But actually, the truth is both of them are fantastically well supported for the very slim pickings that they've had over the years.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, although this massive thing... Yeah, well, OK.
No, I do agree with them. Yeah, totally agree with them.
Right, but the massive thing that's stuck is partly because Owls fans do think they're the better supported, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, you're honest about that. I do think that.
Well, yeah, but you're liking it to average attendances, and it's slightly more. It's just as simple as that. You go to the away following, and like you say, you get your away allocation, and the way Wednesday see it, and me personally, we seem to take more away than what United do. Yeah. I mean, that might be wrong. It's not being disrespectful. It's what I think it is. Yeah. So I think that's where it may come from.
The rivalry, how do you feel about it? I mean, in fact, you're both on Twitter. All three of us are on Twitter, so we see it. A lot of it's banter to be enjoyed. I've had a good smile on a few occasions this week, but also cringed a few times thinking, God, it's a football match. What do you think, Brendan, about the way it is?
I get some good banter off United and Wednesday fans on Twitter, especially as it gets nearer the game. Our MC for the snooker events, Rob Walker, he's been desperate to announce me out as a Wednesday fan in Sheffield. And I keep saying to him, I don't think you should do it because where you're going to get some part cheering, then the other part's going to boo, all in good banter.
Good pantomime, that.
Yeah, but not for the final of the World Championships, for example. But this year I did an exhibition out there, so he announced it out, and I was wearing my Sheffield Wednesday cufflinks, which I always wear. So I've come out to the predictable, some cheering, some clapping, and quite a lot of booing, which you'd expect. But it's the same on Twitter. Get quite a lot of banter. You get some nasty abuse at times, but that's in a minority. Yeah. But to be fair, I've had some nasty abuse from Wednesday fans as well as United. Yeah,
and I've interviewed plenty of your counterparts in football. When you talk about abuse, referees in football, I'd imagine you have a pretty cushy time in comparison, don't you?
As an official, yeah.
You don't get anything like the football referees.
No.
Get.
Well, I got quite a bit of flack this year because I had to eject a guy during the first round. Ronnie O'Sullivan was playing this year, and he was out off his head drunk in this game and on the second row fast asleep, and he suddenly woke up and shouted out an expletive, which I've heard, and told the security to come and ask him to leave. But everybody at home on TV thinks I'd just kicked this guy out who was asleep.
For being asleep?
Just because he was asleep. But he wasn't asleep, it was the fact that he was drunk and swearing.
Yeah.
But because people think that he was asleep, and they now think that's why I kicked him out, so I got quite a lot on Twitter and other social media.
Of course, had it been the House of Commons, it would have been, the person would just have been asleep. Fairly
Certainly
common.
not drunk, I'm sure.
I'm sure that's been known. I'm sure that's been known.
Well, it's mostly probably the Tories, yeah. They have a good lunch, you know. We're all too busy working.
Right. The distraction of the sport that you love and the team that you both love in your job environment. Brendan, first of all, there must have been times when you're refereeing a game, as you do all over the world, don't you, at snooker tournaments. It doesn't have to be at the UK or the World Championship. And Wednesday, you're playing in a vital game. Has this happened to you?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Go on then, tell
Mine
us more.
wonders. We always say about the number one trait of a snooker referee is concentration. You've got to be focused all the time. But 2 years ago, the year we got to the playoff final at Wembley, I think we was in China refereeing, and Wednesday'd got a big game, obviously to keep the place in the playoffs. So it's 10 o'clock at night to me over there, 3 o'clock over here, and I'm just thinking, what's the score? Can we get to the interval? Constantly looking at my watch, trying to find out the score. I think it's only 1 or 2 times in 12 years, 13 years it's happened, but I was that focused on the game. It's not like I wasn't concentrating on my job, but my mind was elsewhere.
But you find out that Wednesday are 1 down or something, doesn't it throw you a little bit? You know,
Yeah, it does. I mean, I've refereed in Sheffield at a Crucible when the cameraman's gone, nudged me and gone, 1 down. Yeah, thanks for that. It doesn't help.
It's what you need, isn't it?
Yeah, but likewise, when they say you're winning, it all gives you a little lift. So, but it's people in the crowd as well. They're quick to tell you the scores.
Are they?
Yeah.
So you get little whispers from the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Directly to you because they know you're an owl.
Yeah. It's nothing shouting out. It's
Right.
And it's never during a frame.
No.
If say a player's gone to the toilet at the end of the frame and I've set them up, someone might suddenly just
Whisper,
give a little whisper and then
a score.
Yeah, whether it's a little whatever.
Okay.
They'll let me know somehow.
So, how does this equate in the house then? This
Well, yeah, I
same
mean, I
scenario?
think it's similar. I mean, we quite obviously Saturdays we would normally not be there, but weekend, so during the week matches, it's quite often Parliament sit until 10 o'clock. And in fact, just Tuesday before last, when we were away at Bolton, United had started at 8 o'clock, and so I'm thinking we're going to be finishing around about 10. You would got a vote at 10, and I was just hoping the game was going to be over before we had to go and vote. So luckily it came through. We got the win. As soon as I got into the lobby, me and Paul Blomfield looked at each other and were like, "Yep, 1-0, we've done it." And you just know it's happening. I think the other thing where it really stands out, because obviously there's people from all over, is when there's an England game on. You know, and if England are in the World Cup or European Championship, you get that kind of buzz going along the benches. Oh yeah, England scored, England behind, whatever. So I think with the England matches, that's where really you get it amongst all of them. But yeah, I think there's lots of MPs who having a crafty look at their phone every now and then just check the score.
Yeah, and in terms of the difference between the way a football crowd behaves and the way politicians behave in the Commons, is there very much
Well, you don't get a lot of hearing at Bramall Lane.
No.
I think it's maybe slightly more restrained in House of Commons, but no, there's certainly been known to have the odd heckle and a bit of strong language. I've never got around to actually chanting it. I don't think.
No, not but it's part of the theatre, the excitement and entertainment. I mean, visitors, you were kind enough to accommodate my wife and I about a year ago, and it's the spectacle, isn't it? The theatre.
Well, I think it is. I think that, I mean, it's interesting because lots of people say, "Oh, I saw Prime Minister's question." They're all shouting and should be concentrating. And I say we have 7 hours of those debates. If that's what you want, stick BBC Parliament channel on virtually the rest of the week, and you'll hear people making long, detailed speeches. You'll hear respectful argument. You'll hear detailed analysis of pension policy. But for half an hour a week, You've got the bear pit that is the House, is Prime Minister's questions, and Prime Minister's questions performs a function, and that is that the Prime Minister has to know what they're talking about, because they have to be able to answer on anything that they're asked about. And they've got one person standing up who's going to ask them about NHS waiting times, the next person's going to ask them about Brexit, the next person's going to ask them about care services for the elderly, and so the Prime Minister has to know what they're actually talking about. And of course, yes, there is a lot of hearing or heckling, shame, what you're on about. But I think when you're there in that very House of Commons chambers, very, very tight space, it does have a sort of sense of atmosphere all of its own. And certainly when I've had people visit from other parliaments like Germany and France, they've said, you get nothing like this in our country. You might get Merkel will stand up and make a 15-minute speech and someone else would make one. You would never get that sort of quick question, answer. And I think it's a real strength of our system. Yeah,
it's very entertaining, I have to say. And more entertaining than some football matches I've been to over the years. Now then, tell me then, we're coming up to a break, 3.5 minutes to go. And we'll have more chat after the break, by the way, about this game. Why are Wednesday going to win then, Brendan, for you?
We've picked up the pace a bit these last 3 or 4 games, started playing well. The home advantage, it seems to have settled on this diamond system that everyone seems to want to play. And they're just a bit more attacking. Like you said earlier, they keep the ball well, both teams keep the ball well. And I just think the overall factor on Sunday will be the home advantage for me. I do personally think that we're a stronger squad. Stronger 11.
Should be on the expenditure.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. And I think this is the season that he needs to get the best out of him and push for promotion.
Just be honest, just before the 2 home wins and the draw at Cardiff, which could have been a win, would you have been a little bit of trepidation about the derby?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I never look forward to these games anyway.
Really?
Yeah, I don't enjoy them. I'd be happy if we didn't play each other ever again. Yeah, the build-up to it is stressful. The banter and stuff that comes off it if you get beat. Don't get me wrong, on Monday morning if we win, then I'll be giving it to my mates, and likewise if they win, they'll be doing the same reverse, which I expect.
Is that a common feeling? Because I've not heard it expressed too often, not looking forward to it.
Well, it's my personal opinion. It's not that I don't ever want the game, because obviously we're a big city with these 2 teams. It should be a game in the Premier League, especially with the fan base that we've got, but it's...
How do you feel about that, Toby? Are you relishing it? Or?
I get the point Brendan's making. I think it is a nervy time when you're coming up to these. The defeat feels worse than the victory feels great. I think that when you lose a derby, particularly thinking back to the semi-final, it's terrible. By the same token, you think back to 91, 92, Bobby Davison's night at Hillsborough, and that's one of the great nights of my life. That was. Yeah. So there's so much at stake. It's only 2 games out of the 46, but it's such a big one. I remember in that 91, 92 season we were doing terribly. We played Wednesday at Bramall Lane, the first of the 2 games. We won there. We won well, and we went on a run after that. I remember going to White Hart Lane, winning at Tottenham the next week, and it just gives you a whole season a boost. Yeah. But I think that the game this week, there's a lot more pressure on Wednesday than United. I think before the Fulham game, Carvajal was probably a couple of games from the side.
Do you honestly? I don't agree with you there. Well, I really don't.
I don't.
The sense. I don't know, but the sort of sense of pressure that was coming from Wednesday nights was very strong. And, for United, we're all thrilled with Chris Wilder, whether we win, lose or draw. And I think we can go in there and give it a real go. And we've seen already, United are good enough in this division. We might win on Sunday, we might not. But, we are confident now that this is a side that can compete with, the best this division's got.
But the other thing is you've not gone on that...
We're going without any pressure.
But you've not gone on that run where you've gone 4 or 5 defeats on the trot yet and pressure starts building. So will the feeling be the same towards Chris Wilder then, if it starts
for me
dipping?
It will be. Definitely. I think he can do no wrong for me. Absolutely. I think he's been absolutely fantastic. Not just the performances
Right.
last season, which were great. But
Brilliant, Toby.
you know,
8
they
seconds to the
conduct
break. Thanks very much indeed. 5 minutes, and these two guys will be back for more. And James, see you then. See you.